A while ago I saw this video on why 99% of Mongolia is completely empty. It's a great video that talks about the harsh conditions of the Eurasian steppes and the inability of the farmers within Mongolia to grow enough crops. And then it got me thinking, what is up with Mongolia? Even countries like Kazakhstan have a Borat, or the Middle East with their ongoing genocides. But Mongolia is only known for one thing, and pretty much one thing only: Genghis Khan. It's like if the Roman Empire kept a significant portion of land and weren't spoken about for 600 years after the fact, and everybody just went around being like, remember Caesar, guys? Remember, Brutus? Because I'm not teaching an 8th grade history class, I'm going to be telling the story of Mongolia from the 19th century onward. Before doing that, I will briefly go over what happened after Genghis Khan, because if I didn't, the story would start with Mongolia not existing at all. After it was the Mongol Empire, it was known as the Yuan dynasty. Aside from being known as the King of Mongolia, he was also known as the King of Assault. Cupcake! Needless to say, he had a lot of children, and not all of them got along. This policy of overexpansion would kill his family and, ironically, take his empire down with it, leaving the largest group of Mongolians to rename themselves the Yuan dynasty, and the rest of them to own parts of Eastern Europe, the Middle East, and Central Asia. From there, everything went to shit. Well-documented, extensively put together shit. Those in the Western region changed philosophies, became Muslim, something, Ottoman Empire, expansion of Russia, Kazakhstan? Leaving the Yuans to resolve border disputes, fight amongst themselves, turn into the Mings, then the Qings, and then finally break off into two factions, the ones who supported the Qings and the ones who didn't. The ones that didn't fled up north towards Russia and were subjugated by the Russian Empire, and the ones who did were allowed to have their own little nation-state within the Qing dynasty. This all happened at the start of the 18th century until the Qing dynasty messed up and everyone started to get upset. After the Xinhai Revolution, let's just pull up a list. This is how much of China tried to secede from the Union. That's the equivalent of every 2 states that we have attempting to make a break for it. But because everyone in China is such an emaciated cuck, they decided to settle for a rebrand. They're not the Qing Empire anymore. They're the Chinese Republic of China. And the Mongolians decided to take full advantage by seceding. But their separation didn't come easy, as we will now get into the interesting portion of this video. The part where China wants you back, the war to end all wars has failed, and Russia is going through a phase. This is modern Mongolia.
Темная ночь, только пули свистят по степи, только ветер гудит в провода.
China and Russia let Mongolia LARP as a country for almost 5 years, until China forced them to become a subsect, and then Russia went mad with communism. China took this opportunity to storm Mongolia and forced them to denounce their independence, while taking all of the leaders who started the revolution and murdering them. This would prove to be a really bad thing for the man of the hour, Baron Ungern, who was just about to save Mongolia from the powers that be. Born in Austria-Hungary, he joined the Russian army to fight in a war against Japan. After returning home to Russia, the empire broke in two, with those who wanted to be communist and those who didn't. The anti-communist forces enlisted Baron to become nomadic with them and roam the steppes until eventually arriving in the Mongolian capital of Ulaanbaatar, where he would try to find new revolutionaries. But none would be found, as they had all just been murdered by the Chinese. After receiving permission from some famous guy in Mongolia, he fought the Chinese back to China. While he was literally liberating Mongolia, a bunch of idiots back in Ulaanbaatar started thinking about communism. They thought so hard about it, they decided to shake hands with the Red Army and murder any of the fellow Mongolians who joined his battle, as well as betraying him and killing him through firing squad. Now, the Mad Baron wasn't exactly a nice guy. He was famous for killing Jews and communists and anyone suspected of being Jewish or communist, but he wasn't exactly wrong about one of those. No communist country has ever worked for good reason, and under the Soviet Union, the Mongolians suffered for nearly a century after, with poverty and indentured servitude. Although Baron wasn't able to save them from communism, he was able to inadvertently save them from World War II, as fighting off the Chinese would turn them into a Russian state during the war. And where China failed and was subjugated by the Japanese, the Russians fought them off and protected their territory, including their land in Mongolia. After the war, Russia pretty much owned the country, playing a pivotal role in their independence on the world stage, with China agreeing shortly after. Then China turned communist too and started killing all of the Mongolians in their country for being historically the only Chinese people with self-respect. It's funny that China would start calling the Mongolians left in their country members of the PRP and descendants of Genghis Khan, when it's very well known that every Chinese person has at least one Mongolian ancestor. The PRP was the movement that got them to leave China, unlike all of these guys who stuck around to grind social credit so that they can go to UC Irvine. Then China went through another rebrand to become a socialism, of course, and Mongolia had a peaceful protest to become democratic, which miraculously worked, and Russia left them alone, just like England did with India. After years of forced labor, extreme taxes, and overall abuse from the government, the Mongolian people became a wonderful, democratic nation to everyone with severe autism. The truth is, Mongolia is most likely owned today by the Chinese or the Russians. If you send 3 tanks and a handful of Russian soldiers to Ulaanbaatar, you can literally own all of the Mongolian territory, but neither China or Russia ever attempt it. Of course, this could be due to the useless nature of the land, being incredibly hard to start farms or build houses or really do anything on it, but it's not like Mongolia doesn't have its own geopolitical significance. It would be an odd coincidence to have the most desolate country on the planet be located between 2 world superpowers and also entirely independent. I'm not going to go too far into conspiracy, and if I actually found any evidence on the matter, I certainly would not be discussing it on YouTube. So that's Mongolia. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please hit that subscribe button, hit that like, leave a comment, and tell me what dates you're available to meet up with me in real life. And we'll go to Ulaanbaatar together.